Good morning and welcome to Morning Scoop for Thursday, December 9th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Rose Bowl game against Utah in 23 days, the game against Michigan in 353 days. What was supposed to be a relatively quiet week for the Ohio State football program has suddenly become a very busy one. First, on Tuesday, the team announced the hiring of new defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. Then on Wednesday, something that had been in the works for a while became official. Elite 2023 defensive commit Sonny Styles is reclassifying and is now Elite 2022 defensive commit Sonny Styles. He will be signing with the Buckeyes next week. So what does this all mean for Styles and Ohio State? Buckeye Scoop's Marc Givler has been our leading man on the Styles beat for pretty much since day one. So Marc, what made Sonny want to move up his enrollment by a year?
Yeah, this is a football decision. I know the natural inclination is to go right to NIL, given what we've seen recently, but this was a football's decision. I was told the coaches of Pickerington Central were pushing this. We're actually encouraging this, even though they're going to lose their star player next year. But that it was almost a thing of they've accomplished. What more is he going to accomplish as a high school football prospect versus getting into Ohio State a year early and starting his development there, getting a chance to figure out what his future position is, a year in advance. And then you look at the opportunity there. I don't want to put too high expectations here. I think we should kind of be very conservative with our expectations year one. But that being said, pretty thin room if you're like a hybrid safety outside linebacker type at Ohio State right now.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about two of the things you just mentioned there, where he's playing and what does this next year look like? And it feels like this is a very complicated conversation because we are kind of just starting to get our heads wrapped around what a Jim Knowles defense might even look like at Ohio State. But do you have a sense for where Sonny Styles might fit on the defense next year as far as position? And then also, I guess, how likely is it that he'll be able to play any kind of a significant role in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, I see him. I think a lot of people are saying safety or listing him at safety. I don't think he's going to play safety the way we envision a safety. I think he's going to be more of a in the box player. So maybe a little bit of a strong safety ish role, but I think outside linebacker. And I think again, I'm still catching up on Jim Knowles myself. I'm sure Ross Fulton will have a lot of good stuff for us coming down the pike. But I did notice he kind of uses that stand up pass rusher, and I think Sonny can do a lot there too. So I actually view him more as a hybrid in the front seven versus a hybrid in the back seven. Part of that obviously will be where does his body go. He's 215, maybe even 220 pounds right now, and he's still skinny. I don't see reasonably how you hold him under 235 in college. Unbelievable athlete, super versatile. So, but I would say more of a hybrid front seven guy, a hybrid edge guy, outside linebacker that can rush the passer eventually once his body fills out, more than kind of what we've seen him do at Pick Central, where he at times is kind of a single high safety. I don't see that happening at Ohio State.
So, when the only previous example of this at Ohio State did not go great, it feels like there's going to be obvious questions. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? The whole Quinn Ewers thing went pear-shaped pretty darn quickly. So ultimately, do you see this as something the Buckeyes are going to be happy about, or is there reason for concern that this may just be too early for kids to do this because there's not a whole lot of precedent on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a concern that we are entering kind of uncharted waters here with some of this stuff. That being said, I think Sonny fits the profile of exactly the type of kid, if you had to draw this up of who fits the profile of the right type of kid to do this and for doing it for the right reasons, I think that's Sonny. Again, this is not an NIL deal. This is a development. This is a football decision. Also, you can get in, you can get I know degree is very important to mom, so you can get your academics started immediately. And then, again, if you have NFL aspirations, you can get that degree a little bit earlier. So I think that probably is at least a factor in this. But again, this was primarily a developmental football decision, not an NIL decision. He lives, 25 minutes from campus, 20 minutes from campus. whatever it is. He's not going to get homesick for Texas. It's not there's not a cultural issue. He's been around the program so much. My God, he visited 4 times in June, several games. He is close. Quinn Ewers was not close with the guys a year ahead of him. But Sonny actually is. I know he's very close with CJ Hicks. I know he knows a lot of those, knows Gabe Powers very well. He knows a lot of those guys. He's been around them so much. I think it actually is a nice way to bridge the gap from a recruiting standpoint, where you get a guy who was going to be a leader of your 2023 class, but now he's going to be already on campus, but he still has those relationships with the 2023 guys. He can still, kind of build those relationships with 23. So I don't buy the fact that he can't be a class leader in 23. I think he still can be. In fact, I think it may actually benefit Ohio State. He'll be able to give some people some real feedback and not just a recruiting pitch, because he'll be living it. So this fits the profile of, again, if someone's got to do it, if you're Ohio State, if someone's got to come in and do this, this is the type of kid I think you would want to come in and do this. And I know I kind of skipped your part 2 of the last one of what can we expect from him. Look, it's a thin linebacker room. I expect the bullet to still exist in some format with Jim Knowles. He is kind of a 4-2-5 guy, so there will be hybrid guys out there. So I do think that's going to probably stay in some capacity, but let's not go nuts here. Let's set a nice bar. How about he comes in, he maybe gets on some special teams, and he gets to play a little bit in mop-up duty, and we go from there. I don't think he's coming in to unseat anybody. I don't think that's realistic. It's so much, but I think he can come in on special teams and maybe kind of slowly work his way into maybe even a 2 deep, given how thin they are right now at some of these positions. But let's not pencil him into the starting lineup.
Yeah, Tony Gerderman and I talked about that last night on the Wednesday evening Buckeye Weekly, and what I said to Tony was, I don't think this makes the 2022 Buckeyes appreciably better. Maybe there's some incremental something around the edges. It feels like this makes the 2023 Buckeyes potentially a lot better, makes the 2024 Buckeyes potentially even better than that, where instead of a first-year player, you're a second-year player. Instead of a second-year player, you're a third-year player. And then 2025, maybe he's gone, and maybe this makes the 2025 Buckeyes a lot worse, but that's 2025 is a long way from here. If this makes the 2023 and 2024 Buckeyes appreciably better, I think Ryan Day would probably take that with a smile on his face. So that is potentially good news for Ohio State. Some more potentially good news for Ohio State, some encouraging signs of maybe some good news coming on the offensive line on the recruiting front. Carson Hinsman, who has long been considered at least a strong Wisconsin lean, maybe trending more towards Ohio State. What are you hearing about Carson?
Yeah, we've been talking about this by we, like Bill and Alex, myself, and it's been interesting because, again, if you start going back and you kind of look at what Carson Hinsman has done, he made the official visit in the summer, and he made 2 subsequent visits this fall. If you didn't know anything about Carson Hinsman and you just kind of looked at what he's been doing, you would think Ohio State would have a great chance. And I think maybe we've underestimated their chances maybe over the summer into the fall, because he has been around so much for someone who, isn't right around the corner. So I think they've got a shot. I recently kind of wrote a who's in, who's out thing. And I said, I thought they would actually get one of Green and Hinsman. Right now, I said, maybe it's Green and not Hinsman. I am probably the opposite today. I'm probably still in the boat that I think they're going to get one of these guys. But I think if you put a gun to my head right now and which one are they going to get, I think I might go Hinsman over Green, coming out of the in-homes and just with all the new information coming out. Ernest Green did visit Alabama recently, so last week. So I think they've got a shot here. I think they've got a decent chance. And again, I think it's encouraging. You're seeing some stuff coming out that's positive for Ohio State, and it's coming out from Wisconsin people. So it's not the Ohio State, media necessarily that's pumping this up. I think there's some buzz coming out of the Wisconsin end of things that maybe Ohio State's in the driver's seat right now.
Does Hinsman project as a tackle, or is he more of an interior guy? Where do you see him potentially playing for Ohio State if he does sign with the Buckeyes next week?
I think he can be a tackle. Yeah, I think he can be a tackle. And we can, this may be a different show, but, we can talk about, the philosophy of just recruiting a whole bunch of tackles and then, just kicking them inside and how maybe that didn't work great this year. But, I think he's probably a tackle. I think he's, I don't know, similar maybe to a Ben Chrisman. I probably would have had Chrisman a little bit higher rated coming out. Maybe Hinsman's a little bit lighter than Chrisman, so maybe a little bit lighter feet. But I think he's a guy who obviously all these guys can play guard, if you want them to. But I give him a shot to play tackle.
All right. Well, there was not all good news for the Buckeyes on Wednesday. Safety prospect Xavier Juanpa, who had long seemed like he was, somewhere between plausible and likely to end up at Ohio State, announced that in fact he would be signing with Iowa instead as his home state team. Do you have any idea where that one went wrong for the Buckeyes? Because it seemed for a long time like he was somewhere, he was at least somewhere close to in or in adjacent for Ohio State. And then all of a sudden it seems like it kind of just went awry in just the last month or so.
Yeah. So back in the summer, I definitely thought it was Ohio State. And even recently, again, it was very possible it was Ohio State, but you could start to feel maybe September-ish, you could start to feel Iowa kind of picking up some momentum. And I kind of mentioned it on the site a few times. I said, look, I'm not changing the pick off Ohio State yet, but this Iowa stuff, I think it's legit. I don't think it's lip service to the home team. Iowa got off to an amazing start to the season. And, even all told, they had a good year. But, they got off to at one point, I think they got up to number 2 in the country. So, they play really good defense there. They develop safeties. They develop defensive players. It made sense to consider them a viable threat. He said on his announcement, I believe he said that he made his decision Monday. Did he? I don't know. I think maybe it would have been made a little bit before that, but I do think that, if there was any doubt as far as him maybe wanting to go to Iowa, I don't think Ohio State's uncertainty on the defensive staff helped. Now, I don't think they lost him over it. I think it was already, the momentum had already swung towards Iowa, but it's hard to swing it back when you don't have your defensive staff settled. And I think that hurt them to try and swing this back here the last couple of weeks.
All right, now we're going to have the same exact conversation, except not with a player who's committed yet, but it's another safety, Zion Branch, who seems like maybe he's drifting away from the Buckeyes after seeming like he was more likely to end up at Ohio State than other places. How much of that is USC actually having a head coach right now, and how much of that is some of the question marks about the staff at Ohio State?
Yeah, again, I would. It's a similar answer to Juanpa. I think the uncertainty is making it very difficult for Ohio State to swing this back in their direction before he decides. But the Lincoln Riley hire had a really big impact. And this was a kid that I was a little slow to come around on as far as being in the class for Ohio State. Even over the summer, I was like, oh gosh, I don't know. What's USC going to do? And we got so far into this with USC doing nothing. They fired Clay Helton months ago. No one seemed to see the Lincoln Riley thing coming. So there was all this uncertainty at USC, and it just felt like Ohio, and then Ohio State got him back on campus in the fall. And it just felt like they had really put a stranglehold on this thing. And boy, it flipped like that. And it does makes you wonder if he was just waiting to see if USC could hire a competent coach. But it just, man, it was almost overnight. It was a 72-hour thing where the information went from, he's leaning very heavily to Ohio State to, I think Ohio State's in trouble now. And, we'll see what happens, but it's going to be hard to swing this back again, because you don't have your defensive staff fully settled yet. And Lincoln Riley's not going to lose a game between now and the end of December. So it just, there's, I don't know what could happen at USC that, they can, this is what I always say about the new coaches. They can sell hopes and dreams. They can just, they can tell you whatever. There's no way to disprove any of their recruiting pitches at this point. They can say whatever. They can say USC's back, that they're going to be a national title contender, and maybe they will be, but there's no way to kind of combat those types of hopes and dreams types of sales pitches right now when you're talking about that first year honeymoon the new coaches always get.
Yeah, USC never looks better than when they don't have to play football. That has been one of the consistent trends over the last decade or so. There were people I've seen concerned about Caleb Burton as well. He's a 2022 wide receiver commit from Texas who, sort of was in the, sort of followed Quinn Ewers to Ohio State in some ways, at least, was intrigued by the idea of playing with Quinn Ewers at Ohio State. Now people are a little concerned. Well, Quinn Ewers has left. Does this mean Caleb Burton is going to leave as well? Is he going to decommit and follow Quinn Ewers wherever he goes, whether that's Texas or Texas Tech or wherever he ends up? What are you hearing on that front about Caleb Burton?
Look, this is silly season, so anything can happen, but I have not heard anything that would lead me to believe that Ohio State's in trouble for Caleb Burton. I think that's obviously something they have immediately tried to shore up. They're not stupid over there. I'm sure they realized right away, as soon as Quinn said he was leaving, that they were going to need to make sure everything was good with Caleb Burton. I have not heard that it's not. I've heard that everything is expected to go well there. They're expecting him to sign and expecting him to continue on the plan of being a Buckeye. So so far so good. It's going to be interesting to see what Quinn Ewers does. It sounds like Texas Tech is certainly in the mix as well. And, can Burton, even if Burton's wavering, which I have not heard that he is, but if Ewers hasn't picked a school by Wednesday, how does Burton play that? I mean, he's going to have to sign, I would think, but I guess that'll be our key. If he doesn't sign on Wednesday, that's a bad sign. But I think everything's good there. Brian Hartline has done a tremendous job with that recruitment, and again, I think we look at the receiver room at Ohio State right now, and while it's very heavy on talent, it's not very heavy on numbers. And so I think if you're a Caleb Burton or someone of that caliber, you're probably looking at things like, yeah, I'm not going to start next year, but there's not going to be 10 receivers ahead of me on the depth chart. I mean, it's not hard to get into that, 2.5 deep right now. And who knows, they'll probably, I would assume they're going to rotate a little more next year than they did this year, just because of losing Olave and spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure they're losing Garrett Wilson, but sorry if I crush any dreams there, but we'll see. But Burton, I think he knows he's walking into a good situation there. Strong relationship with Brian Hartline. I'd be surprised to the extent that I can be surprised by anything at this point. We've seen so much the last 2 weeks. It might be hard to surprise me at this point.
Yeah, the last few days or weeks before signing day or early signing day now, all I have to do is say a name like Jaden Woodby, and everyone goes, "Oh no! Oh, anything is possible." I'm willing to believe the entire class could decommit. Yeah, so you never say never in recruiting, but it sounds like not too likely. Maybe don't lose any sleep over Caleb Burton just yet. We are now just 6 days out from early signing day. Buckeyes are officially listed with 17 commits right now on the sites. Styles makes it 18. So how do you see the class finishing out, or at least which guys who aren't currently committed do you think will sign next week?
Yeah, I think they're looking for a really good defensive line finish here. I think that's obviously a big focus right now. I still have them getting Caden Curry. I know the Larry Johnson stuff is out there. I'm not even refuting it at this point. I think there are decisions being made, put it that way. I don't know that anything's been decided on that at this point, but I do think, look, as I've said for years, eventually the people who say this is going to be Larry Johnson's last year at Ohio State are going to be right. And they're probably going to be right. They're probably going to be right sooner than later. But I don't know that it's necessarily going to be this year, but it's definitely going to be sooner than later. And I know, again, I think there's some thought being put into all this right now. As things are processed with the new defensive coordinator and everything else going on right now on the staff. That said, unless there's some big bombshell that comes out in the next week on that, I expect them to get Caden Curry. I still have them getting Hero Canoe. And some of these guys may announce at All-Star games. Hero Canoe, I think at one point was going to, we'll see, sometimes guys waffle at the end and just sign and let it go and don't do the All-Star game thing. But so that's two right there on the D line. I've been checking on Amari Abor all week. Talked to a guy in Texas, actually, in here just a few hours ago, and they still tell me that they think it's going to be Ohio State down on the ground in Texas. I like what I've heard on the other end of things. So I still think the defensive line class, believe it or not, can come together the way they had kind of anticipated it would maybe several weeks ago before all this stuff happened with the defensive staff. From there, it gets tricky. Again, I'll stick by my hunch that they're able to pull off one of Green and Hinsman. And again, revisiting what we said a minute ago, I would say the way things stand right now, I would lean Hinsman over Green in terms of likelihood. So I think that's very possible. Obviously, if they add an offensive lineman by Wednesday, I don't see Zion Branch at this point, and I know they've been strategic about that. Ryan Day was actually, I believe, supposed to go see him the night he actually saw Ernest Green, and Lincoln Riley and USC and those guys were in like the next day, and so that got all nixed. The assistants went to see Branch. Day did not go on that, so they've been playing some chess a little bit on the visit stuff with Branch. I don't think it's going to be enough at this point. So, I know they're going to search the portal this winter at a few positions, but we'll see. I'm still digging. The one thing we mentioned with this class finish is I'm waiting for that random name to pop up. That Javante Jean Baptiste or, Jaden McKenzie or so, someone like that who are like, yeah, we're not, we're either not talking about them or they're just kind of out there somewhere on the periphery. Or we're not really seriously considering the idea that they're going to end up at Ohio State. And then, waking up on the morning of signing day and whether the fax goes in before anyone realizes it, or I get a text at like 6 a.m, be like, hey, this kid's going to probably end up at Ohio State this morning, and be like, what? So that I'm still waiting for a situation like that to arise, see if they have something cooking behind the scenes.
And if that doesn't happen next week, well, there's always regular signing day in February. The drama, college football recruiting, the drama never stops. Marc, thank you for joining me.
Yes, sir.
So that is, if that's not a good example of some of the fun stuff that we probably have coming up in the next week or so, I don't know what else you need. If a upcoming Rose Bowl berth, a whole bunch of recruiting drama, assistant coach question marks and new hires and, who's going to stay, who's going to go, like this is going to be a really interesting and fun month around the Ohio State football program, even if it didn't feel like it a couple days ago. Like Tuesday this week, I was like, man, I don't know what we're going to talk about on these shows all week. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, boom, ta-da, news everywhere. How about that? And tomorrow, where the plan is to have Ross Fulton on, as Marc mentioned, Ross will be back tomorrow. I'm really excited to talk to Ross about Jim Knowles and what his thoughts are and how that he thinks that all is going to play out with the Ohio State defense. Should be a fun show. Saturday, we'll have Kevin Noon Kevin Noon's traveling to New York for the Heisman ceremony. We'll be talking to him about that. There is a lot of stuff going on all of a sudden. How about that? Ohio State football, the news never sleeps. We should do a daily podcast. I think there's enough to do a daily podcast about Ohio State football. What do you think? Well, if you can check out this daily podcast and all the other great shows that we do on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, you name it. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. You can subscribe right there. You can leave us a 5-star rating and review, which helps other folks find those shows. You can also find them on YouTube at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Again, subscribe right there. We put all of our podcasts there. We'll have interviews with CJ Stroud this week at the Heisman. We have all sorts of other stuff coming up. Marc covered all the high school state championship games last week. That was great content on YouTube. And we will probably be doing a Tony Gerdeman, Kevin Noon, and I live show Friday, I would guess, or Saturday, something like that this weekend. So lots of stuff all there at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Hit that bell, subscribe there, and you get notified every time we post a new video so you never miss anything. How easy is that? That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.